Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It depends on when you are going to watch our fourth episode of EBI Talks. I would like to send all my greetings to all the EBI community. And today we have a special guest with us. We have from JP Morgan, Mr. Asif Raza, the Managing Director, Head of Central and Eastern Europe, Middle East and Africa Corporate Banking. Good morning, Mr. Asif.
Good morning, Abdulaziz, and good morning and good afternoon and good evening, everyone else. It's really an honor and privilege to talking to you, the community of Egyptian Banking Institute. Is a long history of Egyptian Banking Institute, and we are proud that JP Morgan is part of it, and and it's really a privilege for me to be here today. Thank you.
In fact, the pleasure is for ABI and for the audience, and I'm quite confident that today's episode will be very informative and very educating to all the audience. Let me start with the first question, and it's quite logical questions. Who is Asif Raza?
You don't want to know. Asif Raza. So I'm the son of a banker. I became a banker because my father was central banker, and that inspired me to become a banker. I've been in the banking industry for almost 25 years. I've been with JP Morgan with 24 plus years. I started my career at JP Morgan, New York. Then I moved around, worked with JP Morgan, London, then JP Morgan, Singapore. And now I'm in the Middle East for the last 12 years. That's something has been a great journey for me. As you know, I run the corporate banking business. Last half of my time has been dealing with the emerging market, and it's been real fun and excitement working in the emerging market. So that's who I am, and enjoying the Middle East. And I particularly enjoy doing business in Egypt, visiting Egypt. What a great country, and especially the business environment there and the work that you call doing it in the country has been phenomenal.
Great. Okay, let us have our questions. Following the second question is, given the current circumstances of COVID-19, do you think that the business models of corporate finance would change to cope with such unforeseen events? And if they need to be changed, would that be permanent or just temporary changes to bypass the situation?
Yes, Abdulaziz, since we are talking mostly among bankers, but let me start with a very important point, which was tested this year. If you go back to 2008, it was a banking crisis. Bank worked on it and it tested through. This time, the banks were well positioned to help the client and ready to help their needs, which were unprecedented. So they were part of the solution this time than versus the last time where they were the part of the problem. Several industries impacted more than others. The one who was heavily impacted, as you all know, were airlines, travel, leisure, hospitality. But by and large, every industries were impacted. Every economies were impacted. Corporate finance model actually worked well. What we have seen in this crisis that companies were really focusing on the liquidity, wants to make sure they have enough liquidity and buffer. We have seen huge amount of revolving credit facilities were drawn on. This crisis, the amount of drawdown on RCF was far, far bigger than what we have seen in 2008. So the clients were looking to draw down on those things. Those clients were looking to then set up the new facilities. So all the focus were all around liquidity to make sure they have enough liquidity as the economy and this crisis continues. It worked quite well. And the banks were there, ready to provide their liquidity. The banks globally were there, the banks in emerging markets. So it solved their liquidity issues through traditional financing. But then what we have seen that the clients move to debt capital market, and that was the next stage. So once they have recovered, they have done their liquidity through the banking channel, then they move into issuance or in the debt capital market. And this year, we have seen the record level of issuance in the debt capital market. The issuance were in MENA alone this year was $137 billion year to date. And last year to date was roughly $110 billion. That trend continues in the CEMEA and globally. So the clients really focused on first immediate liquidity. Then they said, okay, what's the long-term way for me to protect my liquidity? And that where the debt capital market came into play and played a major role. And I see, Abdulaziz, this will be the model going forward. The bank is going to do, the client is going to diversify their source of liquidity to be ready, available for crises like this. And it worked. So corporate finance worked well, and I think this is going to be a permanent way of doing business here.
Great. Based on that, can you give the banks a prescription of how to deal with unexpected events?
For the banks, I think the key would be to have strong balance sheet and liquidity. There is no substitute for that. As I said earlier, 2008, we were part of the problem and we worked on it. And that's why we were there to help the clients. And this time we're corporate. So have a strong balance sheet and liquidity. Also, I tell the bankers, and there's no secret, is that time like this, stay close to your client. Share ideas, even more at times like this. Be in front of the client. Have access to the market. Bankers, my friend, make bold decisions, but equally important is to make timely decisions, right? Quickly establish your governance model, right? I mean, there is, people are looking for leaders to provide them guidance. There will be things needs to be done differently. Be ready to make tough decisions. It's not in BAU. So robust control, but let's not forget communication. It's a key. Over communication is better than having a normal communication or not having a robust communication. Communication. These are the few things that I apply myself, and I think these are the things that work for the banks to be prepared and address.
Great. Okay, let's move to retail. Retail business has been impacted a lot by the digital transformation, and technology's influence on this line of business in terms of products and delivery channels is obviously felt. Could you please give us an idea about the impact of technology and digital transformation on the business of corporate lending? In other words, how would the corporate business look like 10 years ahead from now?
Yeah, first, Abdulaziz, when we talk about technology, I was when you were speaking, and I was thinking to myself that this year in February, how many of us was having a view that we will be working most of our this year from home? Yes. I did not. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people will be in my camp, we did not. But business went through, everyone worked very effectively during one of the largest crises of our lifetime or history. And technology played a major role. And look at today. I'm in Dubai and you in Egypt. And this is thanks to technology. So going back to your question, clients are looking for a better experience, and retail and consumer has done so. I mean, today, people like me would prefer to do things electronically versus speaking with someone. It comes to my own personal banking need. So client experience and technology and consumer retail space have done has done quite a lot. So corporate clients are looking for same client experience. Corporate client looking for faster, cheaper, ease of doing business. So digital transformation is equally important as to have what you have experiences in retail and consumer business. Plus, in order to remain competitive in business, this is no longer an option. It's a must. Every industry is going through digital transformation, and so we are in financial services and no difference, right? So the clients, the companies, the corporates, they're looking different ways of deploying technology. Is all around how to maximize the cash, how to better use this cash to the working capital. So there's a lot of tools that have been available where they can have the more visibility, and then they, instead of borrowing from a banks, can they use that cash? Can they collect this cash? Can they use the cash for the working capital needs? That's the one big change I'm seeing, and you will see a lot of corporates looking to have more investment in the treasury, setting up in-house banks capabilities. Also, we have seen some alternative way of funding has come in. One comes to my mind is supply chain finance. Supply chain finance has been there, but this year, especially in our part of the world, has really picked up a lot, where corporates are saying, okay, how can I help my client in their working capital or financing need by setting up a program where if I have the excess cash or if I have the lower cost of borrowing, I can give them the benefit and solve the working capital need. But that supply chain finance, in order to be very effective, you need to have a robust technology. You have thousands of suppliers, and there are multiple things to be done. And for that, if you don't have the technology, you will not be able to provide a very effective supply chain financing solution. That's where we have seen that lots of new fintech companies come in. Banks have partnered up with those fintech companies. Just alone, JP Morgan, we have partnered up with a company called Tolia. They provide the full technology framework, which allows the companies to really add the financing angle to be robust supply chain financing to that. So corporate world the demand from our clients, from the treasury, from financing, it's all coming in, and technology is playing a major role in facilitating it. So it's been a very important, has been important, and it's not an option anymore. And those who is going to do a better job, they will be the winner.
Yeah. Very good. Following question. Green financing, renewable energy, and energy efficient projects are terms used heavily nowadays. Can you elaborate more on these recently used terms, please?
Yeah, so I would say the ESG, right? And there has been escalation of ESG focus by investors. This has been driven for those who's looking to raise money. So the investors sectors which are not addressing the ESG, I think they will need to address this quickly, but by and large, this is a top priority. I mean, we're having a more and more discussion in ESG these days than any other topic. So this is a priority for clients, priority for the banks, but it's driven by investors. Investors are constantly looking to make sure that they have a portfolio where they are investing on the ESG, and you will see this year lots of new funds were established just to focus on ESG. We have seen lots of green bonds has been issued in our region. We have seen a lot of clients are looking into asking questions how they can create the financing tool which will be eligible. We also start seeing now is that there is a cost benefit coming in on funding which is ESG related. So overall, it's a huge focus of disease. Everyone is focusing on it. Is driven a lot by the investors and globally. Europe is taking a lead on this thing, but it's a top priority in our region, huge priority. Lots of discussion happening in that space. Yeah.
That's great. Okay. Also, let me tell you that during your business life, what is the biggest risk you have ever taken? And how did you manage this risk? You know, our questions is getting more personal and personal. At the end, I think we're gonna ask you a question to tell us something that is not non-business related, something that is away from the banking, away from the cash, the liquidity, and all that stuff. So let us warm up now.
Well, I'm glad you're asking this question to me, not my wife. Marrying Asif and all the risks she has taken. You know what? For me, there isn't any big risk or a small risk. The risk is a risk, right? And they're all risks. The key is to make sure that you understand that risk fully and you manage it. We in the bank of taking the risk as a bankers, right? We bankers take risks. Same, we take risks in professionally in a personal life. It goes back to how do you manage it? Someone told me some wise man told me that we will make mistakes. If you make a mistake based on wrong judgment, it's acceptable. But you make mistake based on that you made that against your principle, that's not acceptable. So the risk is there. Risk is everything. I think the key that I always tell people is that we are here to manage the risk. And the best way to manage the risk is you should have all the information that you need so that you can make an informed decision. That's the key. So it's a tough one to say which was my personal or not. I mean, I moved around, as you know, in my introduction, I said I moved 4 different countries and my family moved with me. So that I always was very worried that how I will make that balance between working as the bank has asked me to go there, so I have to build a business, do more work, and how do I bring the balance with my personal life. So that was a risk that always was in my mind. I think so far is good. Yeah.
That's great. Okay, Asif, the following question would be, being in charge of the MENA region, do you think that there are differences between emerging markets and mature markets? I mean, in terms of credit policies, risk appetite, and credit offerings?
Yes, Abdulaziz, there is a difference between emerging market and developed market, and I work in both locations, so I have seen it myself. But before I respond to this question, I think there is a one silver lining. The one good thing is that the growth in developed market, as you have seen, as you all know, is quite low. The growth is all coming from emerging market. So hence the opportunities are there, and therefore the risks are also there too. So the biggest difference, to respond to your question about credit, yes, there is one, and I think is in the transformation stage. The lots of corporates are working towards this in their governance model and transparency, which is giving a lot of which is enhancing the credit appetite from the banking institutions or others. But the biggest difference that I see in emerging market and developing market is the lack of domestic debt capital market. If you see, domestic debt capital market and developed market plays a huge role in the availability of credit and liquidity. And in emerging market, in our region especially, that is clearly a one gap. And I do know that many of the leaders and leadership in our region is focusing on establishing a debt capital market. And once we have that, that will be a game changer. So that's one of the biggest reason for the difference between credit and liquidity in emerging market and developed market is the lack of the domestic capital market. And there are a few other things. There's a good legal system. Countries, some system needs to be tested. That's what some investors may see that happening and they will increase the appetite in that space. But I will just sums up is the lack of domestic capital market. Is one of the key reasons why I see this difference. Once we have that, that will be solving a lot of this credit and liquidity issues that you may compare with the developed market.
Great. We usually end our EBI Talks episodes with two standard questions. The first one is that looking at the future and given that we're working in human capital development, and the good news is that EBI just completed a study a few weeks ago about the future skills of the banking sector in Egypt, Egypt's case. And therefore, of course, I would be happy to share the study with you. But I would like to ask you a question. From your point of view, what would be the skills of the banker of the future?
Nothing different, but there are some nuances, right? You have to be extremely strong in technology, right? I mean, in the years to come, if I would say to any young kids, where are the key areas that you really need to focus more? One is that be good at technology, understand the technology, what that means to you, what that means to the industry that you're gonna go in. The other would be if you're talking to bankers, understand risk management is critical, right? Credit risk management is market risk is extremely important. The other I would also say to the young individual is that learn how to present yourself, learn how to, the communication, having a top class communication skills, it's extremely important. And be humble. Humility, learns from people around you, right? Observe, and then pick things that you think that you don't have. Needs to be self-critical to yourself. Don't look for good things. Always look for areas that you think you need to develop yourself.
This is truly effective and inspiring. Okay, my last question, the one that I've been warning you from the beginning of the interview. Tell us something about Asif that has nothing to do with business.
Listen, I've been blessed to have a great family. My wife and my son, they live with me, and I spend a lot of time with them. Post-COVID, I used to travel a lot, but because this COVID, I've been spending a lot of time. So that's been a great fun. So family for me, that I spend a lot of time there. I play golf, which I've been playing for the last 25 years, but I still embarrass myself on the golf course more days than some. But I like traveling. I've seen a lot of places in the world. I enjoy meeting friends. So hanging out with friends and family, that relaxes me, that I enjoy. Then traveling, that's something I also enjoy quite a bit.
Great. Okay, our interview is coming to an end now. Asif, it has been a pleasure. We have learned a lot from you. We were lucky to have such an interview with you. And even the young people, I believe that they will find a lot of very informative and educating stuff when they watch the episode. I would like to thank you very much. Stay safe. Greetings to all our colleagues and friends in JP Morgan. And see you soon, inshallah, in Cairo.
Inshallah, see you soon. And thanks again for the opportunity. And Thanks to be part of EBI Institute on this one.
Thank you very much. Okay, to all EBI community, stay safe. See you soon, inshallah, in the coming episode. Thank you and goodbye.